Today I'm going to go on about something that I've been wanting to do for a while. And I think I'll call this inspiration and beauty. Beauty, the idea of beauty. It's something that I've been ruminating on this. And I don't want to just regurgitate, the odes of a Grecian urn, or the idea that culture has provided us, even adepts, artistic types who have presented us with imageries and language that we identify with from this feeling of beauty. You can attach and associate many different sensations and feelings, but when I think about stuff and when I make paintings, my concern isn't to confirm or validate something that has happened before, although, in my own work, I rely on the brilliance of others. What was it that Blanche in Streetcar Named Desire exclaimed, that she relies on the generosity of strangers? I would attach myself to that sentiment, that Blanche, the character, and but outside the realm that I navigate when I make paintings, and even not just paintings, but just my relationship with the world, and very important, inspiration. I think this is something that has been hijacked to a great extent through culture and their icons, and making people live up to something that they really don't feel they necessarily have any inclination for, a part of. When I say about the higher part of ourselves living our birthright, it has nothing to do with what anybody else has done. But I'm gonna reflect on this idea of beauty and what inspires me. And right from the get, what I'm gonna just propose this and suggest or ask you not to have any reference when you think about something, right? When you think of some experience that feels to be part of this idea of beauty, just for a while while I'm talking, just discard all of that and make yourself, as much as possible, a blank slate, because that's ultimately probably the pathway, the process that gives us a chance to relate to this concept, the idea of beauty. It has to be very fresh. It has to be kind of like a first time thing. We're all virgins when it comes to the idea of beauty. It's a nice idea to be virgins in relation to this, the sensibility that exists in the ethers. We are brought up with sensations that we desire, we want to be a part of. We see something that we identify as absolutely beautiful, another person that you look at and they just strike you as they're so powerful. They have such an emanation. It's related to beauty in our mind. And it also is related to being inspired. I think inspiration and beauty are very closely linked, which is why it's such an important experience. It's not something that would be, this is where my thoughts, the nitty-gritty of this begins. It's not something that is identifiable necessarily in a concrete way in terms of an object, the way we have learned to identify beauty. We see someone, if you are a person that sees another person and they're just like in their youth and it's like magnificent. Yes, of course, you see the beauty in the body is exquisite and athletes that perform at the top of their game, and they're just like incredible, or dancers, or all that kind of stuff. But I'm thinking differently. When I reflect on this, all of that becomes actually a hindrance to me. It's not something that allows me to enter this realm, this sensibility. And I say sensibility very purposeful, because a sensibility is ephemeral quite often, and beauty as such is quite ephemeral. When you always say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. This is something that comes up quite often, and people, when they make an argument about liking something more than something else, it's in the eye of the beholder. But I'm going to destroy all that concept, the eye of the beholder. It's like people, I brought this up in terms of art, that everybody's an artist. No, this is ridiculous. It's like people have a calling, and they're able to be people are able to produce something of value to me when we're talking about art. And it's not because they were born and everybody's an artist. There is something involved here that is a calling, something that people accomplish because of an effort. It's like when I say, like, you have an athlete that is so extraordinary in their ability. It's not just because, oh yeah, it's a calling, and it just fell in their lap. No, it takes a lot of work. When you look at those gymnasts, and from the time they're 3 or 4 years old, they're already on the mats and doing their stuff. And well, that's a whole other story. The abuses that go on there, the body is pushed beyond what it should be, I think. But I'm just saying it as a reference point, that it's not something that just drops in your lap. Beauty is something that we work for. It doesn't exist necessarily within the concept that I am talking about. I'm not talking about, let's say, if I sit and I'm watching birds, there is an innate beauty in the song of birds, in natural phenomenon. There is an innate beauty, and I'm not talking about that. I'm not going to talk about this, because that's a whole other subject that gets us. I find myself derailed by this, because what is really crucial, and I'm going to talk about this from the point of view that we've lost something. Not something that is there, but something we've lost, we need to regain. Something that happens when we make an effort. So I'm inspired by beauty, but I'm not able to perceive it unless I've made an effort. That's what I'm saying. I need to make an effort. Beauty is not something that exists just because you exist. I know you'll argue about this, because there is like an objective, you're looking at a sunrise and you say, wow, that's just, the mountains in the background or something, and you have this. But those are phenomena. Those are not what I'm talking about. So this may be over several parts. I'm going to talk about this over several parts, because I think it's important. And I'm going to put this in the context of what is ugly. Just to start with, what is ugly is what I've been talking about for the last over 8 years, an event that occurred that is the poster child of ugliness, which is Fukushima, a disaster that occurred on March 11th, 2011. A nuclear plant blew up, 3 reactors blew up, and another one, what is understood to be the fuel pools for these reactors, disappeared, creating enormous toxicity in the world, a danger to all life. And a danger to all life leads me into the idea that a love for life is quite directly related to the concept of beauty that I have. So Fukushima is the antithesis of beauty. There is something that has occurred in the real world that is incredibly ugly. Like so many other things that are ugly, but I'm focused on beauty. But I just wanted to bring this up again, because it is something that I feel deeply that should not be ignored ever, because we need to fix this somehow. if we have a chance to survive, we need to fix this. So that's what I mean. If there's any value in the things that you appreciate, we need to fix the things that are destroying what we appreciate. And if you actually love life, you want to fix this thing. You want to be on my side, and all the people that are screaming at the top of their lungs about this incredibly ugly disaster that has occurred, we need to fix this. That's what I'm saying. We need to fix this. That's what I'm going on about. It's happened. So we can look for the usual suspects, that there are plenty of usual suspects in this event, but this isn't going to get us anywhere. This is like what happens on YouTube. I mean, you're looking for the usual suspects, and it's totally uninspirational, other than the information that may add to the wealth of your Akashic records on this planet. I don't know. It's totally uninspirational. Without the alternative, which is inspiration. You see, the two need to be combined. If you're going to get into this dissection of this disaster without the inspirational part, you're dead in translation. There is no recovery from this. There has to be the other side of it in some form or other. And now I'm going to talk about the thing that's inspiring, the idea of beauty. To start, because it's actually quite a big topic when you get into it. There is a depth to this that can't be just covered in a 10, 15 hour video even. It takes a little bit of application because it invokes something within ourselves that goes far deeper than our perceptions. And I'll probably come back. People that listen to me understand that I will come back to some very fundamental notions of our existence that are tied to a history that goes way back. And if you're a scholar in terms of a biblical scholar, and even if you're a biblical scholar that has understood the letter numbers of the language that was used to create the biblical stories, you will have a much deeper understanding of what I'm talking about in terms of history and the idea of beauty as it is established in the origins of thought, of human thought, however far that goes, whether it's 6,000 years or 1,000,000 years. The origin of human thought is tied directly to this concept of beauty that excites and interests me. As a painter, I'm saying as a painter, it's like something that people can relate to me when I say, beauty. Oh, he's an artist. Yeah, beauty, of course. You look in the back or whatever, you see colors, you see forms, you see lines, and even in simple kind of things as that, there is a sensibility that could be related to beauty. Now, okay, I'm gonna for this first part in this discussion. I've introduced you to ugly, which is Fukushima. Now I'm gonna, I don't have to talk much about this because you can look at my videos and you'll see plenty of description of ugly. Like a lot of other YouTubers are involved in plenty of description of ugly. So I'm saying we got to shift. We have to shift towards something that is within the realm of what I understand to be beauty, something that is very peculiar to the human being, because I don't know how other animals experience what this concept may be. I mean, do whales or monkeys have a sense of beauty? They probably do, but I don't know what that is. So I'm going to talk from a human perspective, from my point of view. And clear your mind. Try to start with. I will elaborate on this more, I'm sure, as I go into this, because it's been bothering me for years. And I'm finally doing it, but just clear your mind of this. And I'm just going to start with the fundamental principle of what this sensibility means to me. And when I work and when I look at other artists working within this framework of communicating and expressing through form, color, line, structures, images, painting, sculptures, literature. What is it that creates this ability, or what is it that other people tap into to give me some direction towards this experience of beauty. And the thing that really, or what I would, this is like the 101, my conclusion. I'll come early on. After 15 minutes of talking about this, I'm going to state the most fundamental quality of something that strikes me as beautiful. And it is, in some form or other, my sense of beauty is evoked when there is, this is the best word I can use here, there is a rightness to something. It represents a rightness within whichever context you want to see it. From a simple cup or a ceremony. Let's say you're doing a Japanese tea ceremony. You're looking at an image that you appreciate. You're looking at some representation of the world. Generally speaking, it's something that we experience that's out there. That's where we start usually, but it's completely the opposite of what's out there. It's actually what's in there, which gives us this sensitivity and sensibility of perceiving beauty. And it has to do with the rightness of something. Reflect on this for a minute. Just eliminate all your images that you have of beauty, whether it's Michelangelo with the ceiling or the incredible architectural structures and what culture has presented us and has offered us many times over and over, and all the icons and all that. Forget, throw it out and reduce it to the most immediate, simplest, elegant appreciation one could have. And that has to do with it feels right. It just feels utterly right when you're in a situation or when you're participating or observing. There is a rightness to something. Interestingly, what else creates a rightness to something is what I go on about all the time, is the concept of conscience, which is an attribute we as humans seem to have inexplicably. It's not taught. It's not handed down in stone tablets from Mount Olympus. It's something that's there that we all know. We can choose to ignore it at our own peril. I have been victim of myself in this regard, that I chose to ignore and regret terribly things that I refused to accept the rightness of a situation through my ability to discern through conscience. And I picked on this word a lot over the last 2-3 years especially, because it gives a pathway, an entrance to this experience. Now, obviously, it's kind of like the fundamental nature of a person is, for me, this aspect. We start with this aspect. As a human being, we start. We don't go anywhere unless this is in play. And then you end up with, I mean, incredible. You could have like the dissertations on beauty. If you look at literature and criticism and people trying to make a case for something being important, I mean, you could, it's voluminous. I mean, you have the Library of Alexandria giving us, you just have to go into the card catalog of it to get all the notions of beauty. You don't even have to be exposed to the actual dissertations, just the examples of. I mean, you could build, but I'm saying eliminate it all and just get down to the very nitty-gritty of it. And that comes down to the feeling that there is a rightness to something. So when I make a painting, I don't think about it. I don't think about this phenomenon that's operative, but I'm exercising a rightness in something. And you can hit it more at times than other times. I mean, this is sort of what artists are searching for. Even if you look at somebody like Giacometti, who produced these very ugly, thin characters, and he himself was a bit of a degenerate. It sometimes surprises me how artists that in their own lives are quite depraved in their behaviors still manage to inspire me to reflect on their expression. And like that Giacometti thing, which has they're 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 quite extraordinary. If you ever confront one of those thin characters with the big feet that Giacometti was producing, interesting, the feet were always really huge. I mean, the platform that these ethereal kind of bronzes were placed on were humongous relative to the body, or what appeared to be a body. It was like just this string with a little tiny head on it and the arms at the sides. And I realize there is, for me, the sense of beauty comes out of a rightness, not out of the object itself, but out of a rightness. The expression he was creating, maybe through his own experience of depravities, how the soul is being extracted out of these shells. These bags of blood end up as just a shell. It's like just the skin that he's representing, which is phenomenal from the point of view of expressing a deep felt sensibility he had, probably through his own experience of living. I mean, what a fucking hypocrite he was. But still, I take something out of this that is actually incredibly beautiful, which is he made an impact on people. I'm exposed to his work because there was obviously, I guess the owners couldn't ignore him. Actually, they like him for the ugly part of it. I like him for the beauty of it, meaning the rightness of something. I will come back to this in follow-ups, that I'm going to follow this up. But just to start with, this is my introduction. It's the 101, the idea of what is beauty. What is it that interests me when I look at myself, when I look at myself, what is it that allows me to have even this opinion? It's like, what is it that gives you the credibility of any opinion? It's something that comes out of yourself that has been proven. You've proven this to yourself, and if it takes 40 or 50 or 80 years of making paintings to finally have an opinion that matters of significance, well, so be it. It takes time. And what I'm saying is, I've been doing this art thing for close to 50 years. And it has allowed me to understand this part that is such a preoccupation for people, and they haven't got a clue for the most part, because they've never vetted this sense of rightness within themselves. They always defer to someone else outside, right? Well, let a priest tell you what's right and wrong, or let an art critic tell you what's beautiful or not beautiful. It's like something, we need to vet these things for ourselves. We need to come in direct contact with the object, with the thing, with the experience, over and over and over and over, most likely, in order to arrive at a credible resolution on this feeling. And I'm not saying it can be resolved necessarily, other than to start with, I'm going to say there's a rightness. Beauty contains within whatever experience you have, there's a rightness to it. It seems a little bit obscurantist of me to say this, but it's the beginning. It's a beginning, and I'm gonna continue this. I'll continue to develop this because, well, I'll end it off here with the idea that people that have been paying attention to my videos, and people that I admire for their steadfastness on exposing the ugliness that is out there, but that's not all. I feel we need to be able to bring this element into our presentations, this idea of beauty. And I know, if you listen to Lonnie Clark, who I really like, she says, love is greater than fear, happiness is important. This is a very fundamental notion of beauty in our lives, that we cannot ignore what is beautiful in order to be able to have the resiliency to overcome the ugliness that imposes itself by design, for reason. The owners need us to be mired in the ugliness in order for them to have their foot in the door all the time. Because if people actually became aware of beauty in their lives, they'd be dead in the water. It'd be over for them, and we'd have Fukushima fixed. So this is my sentiment. This is my, what is that? That worldview that I propagate and I present, like this idea that let's see if I can stand up. Like, no news is good news. That idea that the information is irrelevant, especially if it is primarily just to regurgitate the ugliness. Unfortunately, it's everywhere. But there's also an incredible fundamental basis for us to be human beings based on beauty. And the inspiration that beauty engenders is unequaled. It's like the love principle. This is going to be another whole side to things, because I don't often use the word love in because I've had my own difficulties loving, but I understand where that love principle begins to formulate and form in a real sense, to be totally loving towards. It comes out of beauty and the rightness of something. So I think I'll end it here, but I'll be back with more on this, and especially for people who are creative, who want to make a contribution. This is absolutely crucial and vital, to become aware of this aspect of our nature that permits us, even, like I said, like a painter like Francis Bacon, the contemporary guy, with his horrible, ghoulish aberrations. And he was a piece of work, I'll tell you, if you go into this guy's history. And like many of the artists too, I mean, they were despicable in their behaviors, and in spite of themselves, they managed to produce something that I would, not always, but sometimes, will consider to be of beauty and of service to me in my own search for this deeper sense of self, which is ongoing, this sense of touching our birthright, to be engaged and involved every day in some form or other, whether through thought or action, that engages our birthright. And beauty is an absolute 101. Without it, the ship is sinking. Which is why, you look at the Romantics, and their version of it is it's wimpy. I mean, I can't really hack a lot of the Romantic stuff. The whole notion of presenting us with the obstacle and then making it beautiful in some way. Yeah, I guess it carries some weight. I mean, if you look at the archetypal romantic writers, if you have the Wordsworth or Byron, people that presented us with obstacles and made them into like virtues or something. It's like, it doesn't work for me. But anyway, it's another part. I'm not a big expert on this, but I discard fairly quickly when I come across something, and then maybe to my own detriment. I don't, I'm not that well read on the Romantics because they bother me. Or the Pre-Raphaelites. I mean, the Pre-Raphaelites are another bunch that are really kooky and weird and stupid in a way, but it's out there. But that's not I'm just saying it's not my sense of beauty. The Pre-Raphaelites do not represent beauty to me. I would actually take Francis Bacon more to a Pre-Raphaelite, or Gustav Klimt, the guy that did the sort of gold, shitty, decorative kind of crap and all that stuff. But I'll go on about this a little bit more later. Less than 30 minutes today. And it's hot. We're in a heat wave. Apparently, everybody's in a heat wave these days. Europe is in a heat wave over 40 degrees. When I was in Spain, lived in Spain, 44 degrees was like, oh, Jesus, 44 degrees outside today. Mind you, we were living by the Mediterranean, so there was always a breeze. It was always kind of okay. But if you're in a city in Rome and it's 44, good luck to you.